Before we can start installing Exchange, there are a couple of bits of software we need to put on. The first one is the Microsoft Unified Communication Managed API version 4. The next one is the Microsoft Office 2010 Filter Pack 64-bit. And lastly is their Service Pack 1 for the Office 2010 Filter Pack. Now that those are on, we can insert the DVD and run the setup. Connect to the internet and download any updates. There aren't any. Click Next, accept the end user license agreement and click Next. I'm going to accept the default of recommended settings. Next. Now I'm just going to have one, so I'm going to need the Mailbox and the client access role. Next, and I'm going to leave it on the default install location, and I'm going to accept the default Exchange organization. Now I'm going to leave anti-malware turned on. If you've got a third-party piece of software you're going to be putting on, you might want to disable the built-in anti-spam and anti-malware. There's a couple of warnings here. The first one says we can't have any Exchange 2010 when we're done, and the top one essentially says this is on a domain controller and it's complaining. In a production environment, I suggest you do not put Exchange on a domain controller. This is just a test network. Now it takes a great deal longer than this. It takes about 45 minutes, and I've sped it up for the purpose of the video. Now at this point I would reboot the server and I'd give it a Windows update as well. But to actually manage the Exchange server is all done via browser. Localhost/ECP, we're using a self-signed cert, so it'll complain, and log in using your domain administrator credentials, or the credentials that you use to install Exchange. And this is the new Exchange Admin Center. Now there are a few jobs that you're going to need to do post-install. The first one, of course, is select servers. Select the server that we've just installed and enter the product key to license the product. Type in your 25-character unlock code and click Save. And just as with previous versions, it will tell you that it's accepted a key, but it won't take effect until the information store has been dismounted and remounted. The quickest way to do that is to open the Services console and locate Microsoft Exchange Information Store Service and restart it. Okay, now that we're licensed, we can't send any mail out without a send connector. Select Mail Flow, Send Connectors, and Add. Give your default send connector a sensible name, and select Internet as its usage. Next. I'm going to simply use MX Records to route my mail. If you use a smart host, you can enter it here. Add. Now this is going to cover everything, so I'm just simply going to put an asterisk in here to cover all domain names. Next. And I want to add in the server that I'm on, because it's the only Exchange box that I have at the minute. And click Finish. So now I should be able to send. You don't need to tinker with the receive connector anymore, that's all done for you. So the next job to do is the accepted domains. Now you can see that the private domain of pnl.com is in use here, but my public mail domain is going to be peatnetlive.com, so I want to add that on as an accepted domain. Select add and put in a sensible name that you'll be able to recognize the domain name from, and the actual domain name that you would like to receive mail on behalf of, peatnetlive.com. Obviously you'll need to have an A record and an X record pointing that domain name to your Exchange server. So now we can accept mail on behalf of that domain. We're going to need to add that onto the default email address policies. I only have one, so select the pencil to edit it. Select email address format and add. Okay, change the drop down to the domain that we've just added, and I'm going to choose firstname.lastname at domainname.com, and I'm going to make this the default reply email address for the domain, and click save. Now you can add in as many of these as you want. If you want initial and surname, or surname.initial, you can add them in. That's just telling us we need to apply. Click OK, and you'll see it's unapplied. Down at the bottom you need to click apply. That's what we were being warned about. Click yes. And click close. So that's our accepted domain and our email address policy all set up for us. Now, what I like to do is to move my mailbox databases off the system drive. So I've got an E drive here. I'm going to create a folder on there called Exchange. Now, because I'm lazy, I'm just going to copy that address as text, because we need PowerShell to do this. I'm going to open Notepad, paste that in there. Now I need to find the name of the existing mailbox database that was created. So select Servers, Databases. Select the mailbox database that is provided for us and select Edit. Now on the database path there, you can see at the minute it's on the C drive. We're going to move it on the E drive, but we need the name of the database itself. So copy its name.edb off the end of the path, and we'll paste that into our Notepad file as well. Now we need a PowerShell command to move this database, and that's move-database path minus identity. And now I'm going to put in the name. I'm going to trim that EDB off the end in a minute, but because there are spaces in the name, I have surrounded them with quotes, and it's minus EDB file path. And then I'm going to need to supply the path to the new EDB. It's on the E drive, so I need to tweak that in before it. The final thing I need to do is take that EDB out there, because it's the database name that goes in there. And there is my command, pre-formatted. I'll put a copy of the command on the website, so you can just copy and paste it. Now to open the Exchange Management Shell, press your start key, and after a few seconds PowerShell console should come up and we can paste in our command. Now, it is all in there, it's just you can't see. There you go. So execute that command, simply press enter, and you will be asked, are you sure you want to do this? Either click Y or A and hit return. Are you sure you want to take it offline? Obviously to move it I need to take it offline, so click A or Y and hit enter. There's only one mailbox in this database, so it shouldn't take very long. That's it moved. Now if I hit refresh on there, and select edit, hopefully you will see now it's on our new folder on the E drive, and we've successfully moved the database. Last thing to do is to sort certificate out. Although Exchange 2013 comes with a self-signed certificate, it's more trouble than it's worth to use the self-signed certificate. You will save yourself so much hassle by simply buying one. So select Add, and we're going to create a request for a certificate from a certification authority. Give it a sensible name. It doesn't really matter what this is. This is just the name that you will see in the console here while it's pending. Click Next. I don't want to write a wildcard certificate. Click Next. Okay, store the certificate request on this server. Select it and click OK. Next. Now, on here you can select each individual service and the name. So Outlook web app, when it's accessed from the internet, is going to be accessed via mail.peaknetlive.com. Inside is using its internal FQDN, that's fine. Now, to be honest, I don't really need to do these, because all it does is aggregate all the names up at the end. For instance, ActiveSync will also be mail.peaknetlive.com, but I don't actually have to type it in, but just for the sake of the video. Okay, auto discover when accessed from the internet. I'm going to take out that private FQDN, because I'm going to use split DNS anyway, which we'll find out about in a minute, and I'm going to leave autodiscover.peaknetlive.com. So externally you're going to need to register mail.domainname and autodiscover.domainname. And again, I don't need to type this in, you'll see why in a minute, but just for the sake of the video, I'll click OK. Click Next, and here you will see all the names aggregated into a big long list. Now, as long as the one in bold at the top is the common name or the name that your user is going to type in the browser, all will be well. Make sure that it is. I don't need the name of the server itself. I don't need that. I don't need that. So I've got the public name, the internal name, and autodiscover.publicname. Click Next. Type in details of your company. Click Next. Now, it wants a share to save the certificate request in. Now, I don't have one, so let's quickly remedy that. I'm just going to create a folder on the root of my C drive, call it cert-req for cert request. Share that folder off. Just give everyone full control until again when we're finished. It's only for the purpose of the video. Let's just make sure NTFS isn't going to bite us. Let's give all users full control so we don't have any permissions errors. So, to drop our certificate request, server name is DC2012. Our folder name is cert-req. And I'm going to call it mycert.req. Finish. If it gives you an error at this point, probably because you've got the permissions wrong. Have a quick refresh and you'll see there's mine right at the very top. It's now labelled as a pending request. Now what that has actually done is it's created your certificate request in your share. So if I open that up, with Notepad, for example, you'll see there is a certificate request in PIM format. And now that is the format that you would need to send to an online certificate authority, DigiCert or VeriSign or whatever. That's what you need to send them to apply for a certificate. Now when they have done that, they'll process you and they might want information about you, and they will send you a certificate back. When that's done, you can hit complete. Now, I've dropped my certificate on the root of my C drive, but just to make things simple, I'm going to drag it into the share that I created earlier, because it's got all the right permissions on it. There it is there. Now, I can't see the file extension on that because it's turned off by default. So, some certificate authorities put different extensions on, so I'm just going to unhide the file extension and see that this one is .cer. Let's copy that to the clipboard. And I'm going to type in the path to my shared folder that I created earlier, and then paste in the name of my certificate on the end, because I am incredibly lazy. Click OK. And all being well, second one down. Now, even though we've got it in, it's not been enabled for any services, so we need to edit the certificate. Just have a quick check to make sure everything's right. Those are the details that we applied for. Just to make sure you are setting up the right certificate. Click Services, and I'm going to enable this one for SMTP, IMAP, and IIS. I'm not using POP and I'm not using unified messaging, so save. Yes, I would like to overwrite the existing certificate. I'm not securing my outbound mail with certificates, so I'm not concerned about that. Click OK. And that's my certificate in and running for Exchange. Let's just test that that's actually working. If I close my browser down and reopen it again. Now, if I simply go to https localhost.owa, it will, quite obviously, fail because the URL is wrong. But let's make sure we are using the right certificate. We are, mail.pnetlive.com. It's the right certificate. Now, to make that work internally, I'm going to have to set up split DNS, which may sound difficult, but it is not. Don't forget, I'm on a domain controller. If not, you would need to go to the domain controller that the Exchange is looking for its DNS and open up the DNS console. Now, what I'm simply going to do is I'm going to create a new forward lookup zone called pnetlive.com to resolve that name to my internal hosts. Click Next. Now, the zone name is going to be pnetlive.com. I'm going to allow. And within there, I'm going to create an A record or a host record called mail that points to the IP address of my Exchange server, which is, if I just want to have a quick look, ipconfig is 172.16.254.203. Now, as soon as you've done this one in, I would create another one for auto discover that points to exactly the same IP address. I don't have a reverse lookup zone, so I'm not going to worry about PTR records. So that's the mail one created. Like I say, if I were you, I'd create an auto discover one as well. Let's just make sure that it works by pinging mail.pnetlive.com. It does. So, hopefully, now to test the certificate is working, if we close that and start again, but this time open a web browser and go to https://mail.pnetlive.com. Hopefully this time it should go in without an error, and it does. So that's our certificate set up and working. Providing HTTPS is pointed at this server, it will now work externally for Outlook Web App to outside users, ActiveSync for any of the mobile devices that you want to pick up mail from. Outlook Anywhere will also work. Okay, let's actually check that it's working. I've opened my mailbox there. I've only got one mailbox on it, so the first thing to do is test that mail works internally by simply sending myself an email internally. and click send, and hopefully there we go. So we know internally everything works. The next thing you do is to send an email to an external mail recipient. Obviously you're going to need SMTP port 25 open on your firewall outbound for this to work, and you also need to resolve the DNS name of whom you're sending it to. So I'll just send myself one test outbound, click send. Now just to prove that it actually got to my own email, there it is there. I'm going to reply back again. We're test inbound and send, and hopefully there we go. There's my inbound mail, so we know that mail flows in and mail flows out and internal mail works. That's our Exchange system set up and working. Thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to come and visit us at www.pnetlive.com.